You know that feeling when you say sorry for something that wasn't even your fault, and you don't even notice you're doing it anymore? That's not a personality trait. That's a survival skill you built before you were old enough to tie your shoes. Let's talk about something nobody warns you about growing up. About 1 in 6 adults, when you really break down the numbers on personality patterns, grew up with a parent who made the whole house revolve around their moods, their image, their needs. That's not some rare, unlucky situation. That's basically 1 kid in every classroom of 30.
1 person at every dinner party of 6. You've met more of these people than you realize. You might just be one of them and never had the language for it. Here's the thing that messes with people the most. A narcissistic parent doesn't usually look like a villain from a movie. They don't twirl a mustache and tell you they don't love you. Most of the time, they're the parent everyone else thinks is amazing. They're charming at parent-teacher conferences. They're the one organizing the neighborhood barbecue. They're the life of every family gathering. And behind closed doors, you're walking on eggshells trying to figure out which version of them is going to open the front door tonight. That gap right there between how the world sees them and how you experience them is where the real damage lives. Because when you try to explain it to someone later in life, it sounds insane. My mom was so supportive, everyone loved her. Yeah, everyone except you, the one person who actually had to live inside her moods. Kids who grow up like this develop something psychologists call hypervigilance, but let's just call it what it actually is.
You become a human weather forecaster. You learn to read a room in half a second. The way a door closes, the tone of a, "Hey, can you come here for a minute?" The pause before someone answers the phone. You know before anyone else in the house whether tonight is going to be fine or a disaster. Because your nervous system got trained to detect danger the way other kids got trained to ride a bike. And here's the part that really gets me. That skill doesn't turn off when you turn 18 and move out. You take it with you into every relationship, every job, every friendship.
You're the coworker who can sense when the boss is in a bad mood before they even walk in. You're the partner who apologizes first in every argument just to make the tension stop, even when you didn't do anything wrong. That's not anxiety. That's not you being too sensitive. That's a kid who learned that keeping the peace was the only way to stay safe, still running the same program 30 years later. Let's talk about what actually happens inside a house like this, because it's not one big traumatic event. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's small moments that on their own seem
Like nothing, but stacked up over 18 years, they rewire how you see yourself completely. It's your accomplishment, getting mentioned for 10 seconds before the conversation turns back to them. You get an A on a test, and somehow by the end of dinner, they're talking about a compliment they got at work. It's not that they said anything mean. It's that you learned, without anyone ever saying it out loud, that your win only matters as long as it doesn't outshine theirs.
It's the moving goalpost. You get a 95 on a test, and they ask why it wasn't 100. You get the promotion, and they ask why it took so long. There's no finish line, ever, because the goal was never actually about you achieving something.
The goal was keeping you reaching, keeping you trying to earn something that was never going to be handed over freely. It's the love that comes with conditions attached, even if nobody ever calls it that. Affection when you make them look good. Coldness or silence when you embarrass them, disagree with them, or need something inconvenient. You learn fast that love isn't unconditional. Love is a transaction, and your job is to keep paying into it. And here's a big one that people don't talk about enough: the role flip.
In a lot of these families, the kid ends up being the emotional support system for the parent, not the other way around. You're 12 years old hearing about your mom's marriage problems. You're 14 managing your dad's anger so your siblings don't get caught in the blast radius. You become the therapist, the mediator, the calm one, because somebody in that house has to be the adult, and it sure isn't the actual adult. That's called parentification, and if that word just hit you in the chest a little, you're not alone.
Kids who grow up parentified become adults who are incredible at taking care of everyone except themselves. They're the friend everyone calls at 2 a.m. They're the employee who never says no to extra work. They're exhausted, and they don't even know why, because being needed feels like love, and rest feels like something they haven't earned.
Now, here's where it gets even more complicated, because growing up with a narcissistic parent doesn't just affect how you treat other people, it fundamentally messes with how you see yourself. A lot of these kids grow up believing they're too much. Too sensitive, too dramatic, too needy, too emotional. That's because every time you brought up a real feeling, it got minimized, mocked, or turned around to make you the problem. You cried, and you got told you were being dramatic. You got upset about something unfair, and suddenly you're the one who needs to calm down and stop making everything about you, which is wild considering everything actually was about them. Other kids grow up the opposite way. They shut it all down. No feelings visible at all, because feelings got used against them. Vulnerability got stored up and used as ammunition later. So they build a wall so tall that even they can't feel what's happening on the other side of it. These are the adults who seem completely fine on the outside, who say, "I'm not really a feelings person," who genuinely don't know what they're feeling most of the time, because feeling anything used to be dangerous. Both of these are the same wound wearing different outfits. And listen, here's the statistic that should honestly be talked about more. Adults who grew up with this kind of parenting are significantly more likely to end up in relationships, friendships, or jobs where the same dynamic repeats itself. Not because they're drawn to chaos on purpose, but because the nervous system doesn't know the difference between familiar and safe. If chaos and conditional love is what home felt like growing up, calm and steady can actually feel wrong, feel boring, feel like something's missing. People chase the familiar spark of anxiety and call it chemistry. That's why so many people end up in a version of the same relationship over and over. Different face, same feeling in their stomach. It's not bad luck. It's a compass that got calibrated wrong before you were even old enough to understand what a compass was. Let's talk about the specific stuff that shows up later, because this is where people finally connect the dots on their own life. Chronic self-doubt. Not the normal kind everyone has sometimes, the deep kind, where even when you objectively do something well, there's a voice asking, "Who do you think you are?" That voice isn't yours originally. That's an internalized parent, still narrating your life from inside your own head. Difficulty trusting your own perception. This one's huge. If you grew up being told the sky was green when you could clearly see it was blue, if your version of events constantly got denied or twisted, you learn to stop trusting yourself. You second-guess normal decisions. You ask other people to confirm things you already know. That's not indecisiveness. That's someone whose reality got questioned so many times, they stopped believing their own eyes. Fear of taking up space. A lot of these adults are incredible listeners, incredible supporters of everyone else's dreams, and terrified to talk about their own. Because growing up, taking up space meant competing with a parent who needed all the attention in the room. So you learn to shrink, to ask for less, to need less, to want less. Or at least pretend to. And then there's the guilt. This might be the coolest part of the whole thing. Even after people realize what happened to them, even after they can name it clearly, they still feel guilty for being upset about it. Because the parent probably did love them, in their own way, probably did provide, did show up to some things, did have good moments mixed in with the bad ones. And that mix is exactly what makes it so hard to leave behind. If it was all bad, it'd almost be easier. It's the good moments that keep you confused for years, wondering if you're the ungrateful one, if you're remembering it wrong, if you're the problem after all. You're not.
Here's something that took a lot of people way too long to understand. A parent can love you and still damage you. Those two things are not opposites. They exist in the same house at the same time all the time. Love without safety isn't the same as love with safety. A kid doesn't just need to be loved. A kid needs to be seen, needs their feelings to be real, needs to matter without having to perform for it. And once you understand that, something shifts. The apologizing for things that weren't your fault, the hypervigilance, the guilt for wanting things for yourself, none of that was ever a flaw in your character. It was the most logical response a small, powerless kid could come up with to survive an environment that demanded it. The real twist isn't that you were broken by what happened. It's that everything they called your weakness was actually the exact skill set that kept you safe. And the only thing broken was the environment that made you need it in the first place.
If today's video hit home even a little, you can support the channel and help more of these get made by buying me a coffee. Links right there in the description.